So next week, Ade, the theme for our Quest Wednesday is commitment. And I always get a lot from hearing like your take on it the week before. So I'm kind of really curious to find out what thoughts or ideas you've had around the theme of commitment.
Yeah, it's interesting actually because when I hear that word, I automatically think getting married and the commitment that goes into that promise, that devotion. But there are all sorts of commitments. And just before our call, I was looking online to get a definition of commitment. And there's one that I found, which I really liked, which was the act of binding yourself intellectually or emotionally to a cause of action, binding yourself to a cause of action. And I really liked that sort of binding yourself because for me, commitment is something to take seriously. It's not something that one day I commit to and tomorrow it's gone. So for me, commitment, there is a long term, a hope of a long term thing that goes into it. So setting that intention to have that hope, it doesn't mean that that commitment is not going to be broken, but it's the hope that comes into it as well. So for myself, when I think of commitment, I think of the commitment I have towards my own personal development, my own personal growth, and how seriously I take that in terms of it might be journaling, reading, going to therapy, but just doing that ongoing work for my own self-actualization. So for me, it is that the long-term aspect, but also the hope to be able to devote to that long-term aspect as well. What
See,
about for you?
that's exactly what I mean. I just kind of love listening to what you're saying. Um, what came up for me was a phrase which someone said to me probably about a year ago. And they said, "How do you know what you're committed to?" And it was a rhetorical question. I was like, how do I know what I'm committed to? He said, because it's what you've got. What you're committed to is what you've got in your life. And I found that really interesting. So this morning I was thinking, well, what have I got? And what does that tell me about what maybe I have unconsciously been committed to in my life? It really puts the ball, it kind of throws the ball in my court and says, whatever you've got in your life, that's what you've committed to. So
Mm.
my first thought was thinking about where I live, actually, what does where I live tell me about what I'm committed to? So I just kind of wrote down a few things. So one is, I mean, these are strands of commitment. So I'm kind of committed to order. My flat is very ordered, simplicity. It's not complicated. It's a very simple setup. It's very small, in fact, which makes kind of cleaning very simple and very straightforward. Beauty. So I kind of think my flat's tiny, but it's kind of, there's a beauty in the things that I've chosen to have. There's nothing extraneous. And if there's something I don't like, I tend to remove it. So I'm kind of conscious around beauty. Calm is another thing. And nature, because when I got the flat, I really wanted to have an open space and a green space. I've lived in a flat without a garden before. And I think for me, that connection to nature is really important. In fact, yesterday was really, really cloudy and stormy. And I've got these two big windows, doors actually, and I opened them and looked out, and it was rain, pouring down with rain. And I got under a duvet and lay on the sofa. I could feel the cold, and I could hear and smell nature around me. And there was just something so special to me around that. So it kind of helped me to understand, what am I committed to? What's important to me, and what have I committed to making happen? So yeah, I think it's interesting, that intentional commitment, like choosing something and then learning what commitments we have through our unconscious behaviors.
Mm.
And there's a shadow side to that as well. Well, we don't really have time to talk about that here, but it'll be interesting in the session to look at what are the shadow sides of some of our commitments, and what is the lightness and the brightness to those experiences.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very rich conversation, and I'm looking forward to gathering on commitment.